a brand new modeler in town. One that claims to do everything the competition does, plus a little bit more, plus touchscreen, plus wireless editing, plus the kitchen sink. So this week we have a full in-depth review for you of the Boss GX100. I've been living with this modeler for nearly 4 weeks now, and I've spent a lot of time with it reviewing one of these modeling units, be it a small HX stomp size unit or a full-blown Headrush Helix, something like that. These reviews are quite a lot of work because you just have so much functionality and so many features to test out. So I'm going to do my best to cover off what I think are probably the most important key points of this that I think people will probably want to know. As always, I am more than happy to answer questions or discuss any points with you in the comment section of this video. So holler at me if there is anything you want to know that's not included. Now, as always, in the description of this video is a couple of free downloads for you. Find in the link the Clean Ambient Deluxe rig that I've built, that I've been having great fun with the past couple of weeks of using this unit. You will also find my Recti Stack preset, which after testing all the other metal and high gain focused amp models in this unit, I've kind of settled on as being my favorite. So, any Boss GX100 users out there, also GT1000 and GT1000 Core users should also be able to use these presets. Go ahead and grab them, have a play with them, let me know what you think. Finally, before we crack on, this content is strictly my own. Nobody has asked me or compensated me to do this video. This is strictly my own content and my own unbiased opinions. To really put this thing through its paces and put the tones it produces to the test, I've recorded a whole bunch of tone samples for you here, some of which include the built-in impulse response speaker emulation of the amp. I've also recorded a whole bunch of tone samples for you with this thing running into my Zilla 2x12 through a little pedal-based power amp. I'm using the Ashdown Newt at the moment. So all you're going to be hearing there is the modelled amp sound with a shitload of volume behind it going through a vintage 30. So you should really be able to hear any imperfections in the amp modelling or the effects. Now, this product is probably the biggest, most mixed bag of anything I've reviewed since I started the channel. There is so much to like about this product, and there is a hell of a lot I like personally about it. But in the course of reviewing and living with this thing for the past few weeks, for every one thing I've found that I really like, there's been one thing kind of opposing it in the other column of likes and dislikes where I'm just like, oh, no. You know what I mean? So for everything that works, I'm going to list you something else that I've found that doesn't work about this unit. And hopefully by doing that, you can make up your own mind whether what's in the works column is exactly what you're looking for. this thing stacks up really quite well specs-wise against the competition. Now, apart from the omission of XLR outputs on this, which I must say I do really miss, however, around the price point this thing sells for, which is about 500 quid, you generally don't get XLR out, so that's fair enough. Now, the specs on this thing are highly competitive with all the other modeling products on the market, except for when it comes to amp models. So as with something like, say, a Helix, which is just stuffed full of dozens and dozens of amp models, Boss give you a lot fewer amp models, but they claim to have far greater fidelity with their amp modeling. So they have something they're calling AIRD, which is Augmented Impulse Response Dynamics, or something like that. I think that's what it stands for. Effectively, they've modeled an amplifier. They've also paired a custom impulse response with it. So the idea being is that when you choose an amp model in this unit, you shouldn't need to go fishing around for impulse responses or changing cab sims to get a decent sound. Now that's quite a bold claim, because as we know, the key weakness with nearly all of these modern digital modeling units is the speaker emulation. Normally, you're far better off just downloading your own impulse responses or purchasing some if you're that way inclined and using them, as opposed to any built-in responses or speaker emulation that comes with this unit. Boss's approach to a smaller list of amp models, I think that doesn't work, because that's going to put some people off. Now, sure, a kind of small curated list of amp models, high quality, can work really well. Just look at the Headrush pedal board, for example. There's pretty much everything you'd need in there, even though there isn't a massive list compared to something like a Helix. However, the list of amp models with the Boss GX100, it's not entirely focused on profiles of amps you know. So, Boss have actually made some of their own amp models to go in this thing. So whereas, for example, with high gain, you'd be looking for something like, you know, Rectifier 5150, so on and so forth. You'll find a couple of those in there, but some of them will be missing, and in their place you will find Boss's own take on that style of amp. So they have models in there called Juggernaut, X-Modded, X-High Gain. So I'm not really sure that works, to be honest with you. I think that the whole point of a modeler is it's supposed to be giving you some type of approximation of a sound that you're familiar with. One of them I actually quite liked, and that was the X-Modded. I came up with what I thought was quite a nice high gain preset with that. Despite the short list of amps and the fact that, you know, some of them are just amps that Boss have made up, I really can't say enough good things about the quality of the sounds you get out of this unit. So whilst you can swap out the cab sims and the impulse responses for other ones, the whole idea is that you just pick an amp sound, boom, you're done. It actually works. I can't believe it. I don't feel the need to use my own impulse responses with this. I haven't even bothered to load in what are my 2 or 3 go-to IRs with this thing. That is how good the included impulse responses are with these amplifiers. What doesn't work is if you do want to load in your own impulse responses. Well, it's not that it doesn't work, it's that, again, for some reason, it's just a cumbersome kind of dated process. You have to download a standalone piece of software whose sole job it is to load IRs into this unit, and you have to do it that way through your PC. It's like, what? So, despite the fact this thing has a fully featured wireless editing app that is one of the best I've used, to load your IRs, you have to download a separate piece of software from Boss's website, use that software once to load in the IR, and then that software is just never used for anything again. So that's weird. That's going to go in the does not work column too, because every other modeler I've used, it's like drag and drop most cases to load your own impulse responses. effects in this thing are like listening to a greatest hits album of Boss's effects. Everything you'd want is in there. The acoustic simulator is phenomenal. The delays and the reverbs are an ambient player's dream. All the overdrives are in there. Even the metal zone is in there for its kind of niche audience. I have seen some reviews of people saying they're a little bit disappointed with the selection of effects. Now, I don't know if maybe people haven't noticed, but each effect block you choose with this unit has multiple options inside it. So you can drag an OD for an overdrive, for example, into your signal chain. Then within that OD block, there'll be like 7 or 8 different overdrives. And that goes for all the delays, the reverbs. They really do sound as good as the individual Boss pedals, I have to say. Everything from the ambient echoes to the acoustic simulators. It all comes up to the standard you would expect of something with the Boss name on it. I'm normally quite specific and picky about the ambient kind of reverb sound I like, but I was able to get something up and running so fast on this thing, you know, within like a couple of minutes, which I always find is a really great sign of how good a modeling unit is. How quick can you get a tone that you actually like out of it? So the effects in this unit, they absolutely do work, and they go in the does work column. What doesn't work, sadly, is the user interface to actually edit them. It's just really dated feeling. You have these kind of hexagonal blocks that you drag around. I mean, they look like something from an 80s game show. When you stack this thing up side by side with something like the Headrush pedal board, for example, with its lovely graphic-based user interface where you get actual icons of little pedals and amp heads, I mean, this thing feels like 10 years in the past at least. So I'm afraid the user interface behind those wonderful effects, that has to go in the doesn't work column. What else works? Well, let's talk about build quality, because my foot has experienced some extremely badly built expression pedals in the last 18 months. I'm looking at you, Helix LT. Boss has a reputation for superb build quality, and this thing is built like an absolute tank. Everything feels like you could just stamp on it 100 times over. This thing is gig ready. The foot switches are solid. The expression pedal is properly thick with proper grip tape on there, not some of this kind of like thin, low quality rubber that I'm seeing on some of the more affordable modeling units. Everything you touch, turn and press, the selection knobs, they all have just a really nice feel, and they all feel like they could just last touring and gigging with no problem at all. So build quality, that's going in the what works column for me. What doesn't work about that is the touch screen. When I took this thing out of the box, I promise you this is the truth, I fucking laughed out loud at this touch screen. I was on my own in my house and I was just belly laughed. I was like, oh my God, this is hilariously bad for a touch screen. This is the kind of touch screen that you would find in your granddad's Nissan from 15 years ago. It's low resolution, it's low refresh rate, it's not particularly great at registering inputs. Dragging effect blocks around on the screen is fucking painful. Boss have put a touchscreen in this clearly as a selling point, because at the moment there's only 2 other modelers on the market who do a great job of having a touchscreen. That's Headrush and Quad Cortex. But I promise you, this unit would be far better off without it. I actually, after the first week or so of using this, completely abandoned using the touchscreen. It was that bad. And I strictly navigate around and edit on this thing using the built-in selector wheels and buttons. So my advice to you, if you're thinking of buying this unit, is just put the thought of touchscreen to the back of your mind, pretend it doesn't have one, and get into the habit of using this unit purely with the selector wheels and buttons, because you'll have a frustration-free experience using it that way. Now, speaking of touch screens, this unit has a killer feature, kind of its top trump card, if you like, and something that it can boast having that the competition just doesn't at this price point. This unit has fully featured wireless editing capabilities. That means that if you have an Android phone, an iPad, an iPhone, any sort of tablet, you can download Boss's Tone Studio and you can have full functionality from your mobile device. You do need to purchase an additional Bluetooth adapter for this unit. If you want to buy it on its own, it's about 40 quid. However, if you search around on the net, there are great package deals at the minute where if you buy one of these for like another 20 quid, you can have a bundle that includes the Bluetooth adapter. Absolutely get one of those bundles and get the Bluetooth adapter. The experience of editing and using this unit on an iPad is a dream compared to using the built-in touchscreen. As far as I'm aware, this is the only modelling device under £1,000 that has this feature. I can't think of any that have it. Sure, the Kemper has wireless editing, as does the Quad Cortex, but they're 3 times the price of this unit. So that is a killer feature. My only gripe with the wireless editing app is that certain actions on it take bloody forever. So saving a preset or even changing a preset, you go to a loading screen for what feels just like a painful amount of time, which is really strange because everything else you do on it is like really low latency. So changing parameters, the tuner works spot on. It's so slow on initial connection that I actually thought it was broken when I first tried to get it. And I was like updating firmware and I was reinstalling the app on my iPad. And eventually I realized nothing's wrong, I'm just not waiting long enough. Sign of the times, I guess, but it's something you have to learn to live with to enjoy the wireless editing on this thing. Here is how long it takes just to save a preset. So I really hope that's something Boss can improve with firmware updates, because it's the only thing that's letting down an otherwise flawless wireless editing functionality. What else works about this unit? Well, listen to it. The sounds out of this thing are fantastic. These are hands down some of the best modelled amp sounds I've ever had the pleasure to play through. So, as you've probably gathered by this point in the video, this thing is a real mixed bag. There are things about it, such as the wireless editing and the quality of the amp models and effects in it, that are just killer, like some of the best I've used out of any of these products. But at the same time, there are also extremely frustrating things about this that clearly just don't work. Now, after listing all those things that, in my opinion, don't work about this product, you might think that I can't wait to get shot of this thing, when in fact, the opposite is true. I enjoy the sounds out of this thing, and I enjoy the wireless editing out of this thing so much, this is actually getting kept. Even though I have no need for another pedal-based floor modeler, I already have my Headrush pedal board for all of those requirements. But there is something about the amp modeling in this and the effects quality in this that is just a cut above the competition at this same price point. And somehow I found it in my heart to forgive all the things about it that are just clearly flawed and just don't work. I am going to continue having an absolute blast with this thing, just rinsing it through this little pedal power amp and my Zilla 2x12 behind me. So what do you guys think about what you've heard and what I've said? Can you forgive the things that don't work about this unit to enjoy the things that do? Let me know what you think in the comments section below. If you're using this or any of Boss's current modelling lineup, don't forget to grab my free downloads in the video description. If you enjoyed this video or you get any use out of the rigs I've provided as free downloads, think about chucking me a subscribe, or better yet, think about supporting me via the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below. Until the next video, Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon.